Liz Truss has returned from the United States from her trip, her holiday, and she's back to banging on about her reputation. Well, her reputation is in tatters, and the controversy surrounding Jeremy Hunt and Kwasi Kwateng's budgetary decisions underlies the approaches and perceptions of fiscal irresponsibility over the last few years. And Richard Hughes, the chair of the Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, has expressed concerns yesterday about the transparency and credibility of Jeremy Hunt's last budget. The statement suggests a lack of confidence in the presentation and planning of his budget, drawing a comparison, therefore, to Kwateng's controversial mini-budget under Liz Truss, and pulling the rug firmly from under any sort of comments that Jeremy Hunt might be able to make in his Mr. Bean-like way to question the fiscal statement by the new Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. And so if we start with Kwasi Kwateng's prodigious package, the thing that Liz Truss so admired, and we're going to come to Liz Truss because she is the person who stimulates this discussion anyway. It goes back to September 2022, and the major tax cuts, which included significant tax reductions such as the abolition of the 45 pence top rate of income tax, the lack of the OBR report, so there was no OBR assessment raising concerns about the lack of fiscal scrutiny and planning, the market reaction, which was appalling, the turmoil in the financial markets, which led to increasing borrowing costs and a spike in mortgage rates, which still continues, of course, and the consequences, the instability, which led to which created a lack of confidence, a loss of confidence, both domestically and internationally, eventually leading to Kwasi Kwateng's replacement by Jeremy Hunt and a reversal of many policies, but the shadow of stupidity hanging over the last government. Jeremy Hunt's budget, a series of budgets, but he's focused on stabilising the economic situation after Liz Truss's fantasy at ogling and promoting Kwasi Kwateng's prodigious package. He was more cautious, but not cautious enough, I think. Unlike Kwasi Kwateng's budget, Hunt's budget involved the OBR, but clearly not sufficiently. And hence Richard Hughes' concerns about transparency, which suggests there'd still be issues about how the budget details and long-term implications were communicated, potentially masking challenges, underestimating risks. And then there's Liz Truss. And certainly she has good reason to be upset that her policies have been labelled openly as disastrous by civil servants, inflaming this debate over fiscal responsibility, political bias. She's argued that there is a prevailing groupthink in Whitehall, hostile to conservative economic strategies, reflecting broader tensions between the elected officials and the civil servants who are there to service the officials. But it's the civil servants who have the competence and the skill to carry out the plans and to advise the planners and to advise these elected officials. But if the quality of the elected officials is so poor, as it was in the case of Liz Truss, there's very little room for manoeuvre. And Kwasi Kwateng, who was one of the brighter people in the Conservative Party, I suppose has to take the fall, take one for the team. And Truss and her supporters argue that the negative response, the negative reception to her economic policies was not solely due to their substance, but was also due to an entrenched bias within the civil service, and they claim this bias limits the flexibility of elected officials and is amplified by the OBR's projections, which she describes as inaccurate. But she was the more inaccurate. I mean, I'm sure there's inaccuracy running all the way through the system, but the madness of Liz Truss, the inability of Liz Truss, the stupidity of Liz Truss is not eradicated by her constant whining and whinging about the fact that she wasn't taken seriously. If this is the first time that she has experienced rejection and failure, well, you know, I'm sorry she hasn't had an opportunity to grow up. But she doesn't take advice. If she took advice, we would have seen an improvement in her physical performance. She took lessons in performance. She took lessons in hand gestures, and no matter how much she practiced her hand jobs, they are still ineffective and like some sort of mad marionette. If she can't manage to control her hands, she can't control the economy. And no matter how much she tries to project blame elsewhere, the blame is clearly hers, and the lasting impact of her month of madness is still with us. The OBR's role in providing independent analysis is crucial. And yes, it's it may forecast the wrong things. Truss's critique of the OBR highlights a much broader debate that could be taking place about the balance between independent oversight and political decision making, the freedom for politicians to make decisions. But she made political decisions independently of the OBR, and she crashed our economy. She failed. And there's no amount of hand flapping that is going to change that. There's no amount of reverence for Kwasi Kwateng's prodigious package, which is going to eclipse the failure that is entirely dependent on her stupidity. She got rid of Kwasi Kwateng. She still couldn't deal with the stupidity and the failure of her administration. She had to go. Within a month, a little month. That's a little bit of Hamlet, by the way. Within a month, a little month, she did more damage, probably, even than Brexit. So while there must be criticism for Jeremy Hunt and for Kwasi Kwateng, Kwateng is the one who takes the biscuit. It's the biscuit game, enlarged for Kwasi Kwateng. The rapid, unexamined tax cuts, destabilizing markets, that is fiscal disaster. Hunt's approach, more cautious, it still requires scrutiny, and if the OBR failed to take advantage and failed to see through the guff, and are now complaining about transparency and over reliance on forecasting, well, that's their fault. They can't say, oh, you didn't do the job. It's not transparent enough. The OBR was involved. So the whinge by Richard Hughes is inappropriate. He's too late. So I would add Hughes to the little trinity of people who need to reflect on their failure. Jeremy Hunt, Kwasi Kwateng, Richard Hughes. And Rachel Reeves is coming in to clean up. It doesn't matter whether you like her or you don't like her. She's got a job in hand, and she's cleaning up the mess left behind. And these other people are busy blaming each other. But yes, huge mistakes. Huge mistakes. And the broader debate, as seen in the recent King's speech, revolves around the tension between independent fiscal oversight, political discretion, and being mature. We don't need to be flashy with our money. We don't have enough money to be flashy about.